The sitting is resumed.
Mr. Speaker, revert to government notices.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of the Older Persons Care and Protection Bill 2026.
Revert to first readings of bills.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Older Persons Care and Protection Bill 2026.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read here first time. All those who are members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Prior to the resumption yesterday evening, this Honourable Chamber was debating the Appropriation Bill 2026. We revert to the Appropriation Bill 2026. We will then commence Standing Finance Committee.
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning to our guests. This House is now in Standing Finance Committee.
Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I beg your indulgence in allowing myself and my team to enter the well.
So granted, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Head 93, Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, in the amount of $137,510,473.
Honorable member for St. Michael West. You just give me a few minutes that I can give the instructions with regards to the proceedings so that your officers will be familiar. I believe they should be by now. And then to honorable members. Honorable Minister, you are permitted a 10-minute overview. Your questions, your response to questions would be 5 minutes. You may defer to any of your officers to answer a question, and those officers are allowed 3 minutes to respond. And before responding, we're asking that for the record, you give they will give their names and their positions for that record. Honorable members are aware that they will ask a question and they will be permitted to ask 3 supplementary questions to that question. If it's not supplementary, then we would move on to the other honorable members so that they can, who would have indicated by placing their name tags in an upright position so that we are able to get through relatively quickly and persons may be able to participate in the proceedings this morning. I trust that we are all clear. Honorable Member, St. Michael West, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable members and my fellow Barbadians, it is indeed my privilege to address you today on the progress, challenges, and vision.
Speak into the mic so that the persons recording can hear you.
My apologies. And vision of the Ministry of Housing, Lands, and Maintenance as we continue to build a stronger, more inclusive, and resilient Barbados. Our mission and strategic focus is dedicated to providing innovative, sustainable, and people-centered solutions for housing, land management, and maintenance of the public infrastructure. Our strategic plan for 24 to 27 is anchored on 6 priorities: delivering resilient and affordable housing, maintaining and rejuvenating public buildings, modernizing land management, strengthening institutional capacity, embracing digital transformation, and promoting staff wellness. Hope Inc. is streamlining the application, purchasing, and conveyancing process, making it almost entirely online and more accessible for all. Hope remains committed to delivering housing solutions to first-time owners earning $6,000 or less per month. Through Hope Direct, we are constructing hundreds of 2- and 3-bedroom homes this year, using innovative building techniques and engaging in a range of contractors. This contrasts how it was done previously, and we are seeing much improved output of finished houses with better build quality within budget. With the national framework for battery storage in place, we will position Hope to be able to deliver on the promise of delivering comprehensive, energy-efficient homes with photovoltaic systems on each roof. With this in place, these systems will reduce the cost of home ownership and support our national goal of energy independence and climate resilience. In addition to Hope's direct projects, we are advancing a robust program of joint venture housing developments in partnership with the National Housing Corporation. These joint ventures are delivering a diverse mix of family homes, duplexes, and apartments across the islands. Notable projects include Coverley, Brighton, Concordia Gardens, and Vineyard. These developments are designed to meet the needs of a wide cross-section of Barbadians, from first-time homeowners to those seeking to upgrade or relocate. The NHC continues to deliver on its promise of providing affordable quality houses for Barbadians. By adopting a more industrialized approach to housing construction, as opposed to the traditional artisanal method, the NHC, through these JV ventures, will be able to construct more affordable, resilient homes at a faster rate, helping us to meet the growing demand for housing across the country. This approach will also allow the NHC to place greater focus on the maintenance and upgrading of our existing housing estates. In these estimates, we have allocated resources through transfers to embark on a comprehensive program of general repairs and estate beautification. Accordingly, across estates such as Valerie, The Grotto, Kensington Lodge, Country Park Terrace Units, of course, Haynesville, Londonbourne Towers, Eden Lodge, Stewart Lodge, Deacons, we will continue to implement key programs, including electrical upgrades, sewage improvements, and estate beautification initiatives. These efforts are aimed at ensuring that our housing communities remain safe, modern, and dignified places to live, and that they reflect the standard befitting a nation proudly celebrating 60 years of independence this year. We also remain firmly committed to expanding opportunities for home ownership through our rent-to-own programs and social mortgage initiatives, specifically targeting Barbadians who may not currently qualify for traditional bank mortgages. We recognize that many of these individuals are credit-worthy and capable of meeting their housing obligations. All that is required is for applicants to demonstrate a consistent rental payment history for a period of at least 12 months, allowing them for a fair opportunity to transition from renting to owning their own home. We will continue to empower Barbadians with ownership of property through the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act, including initiatives such as the 6 Men's Life Improvement Project. As part of this effort, we are currently surveying additional lots so that we can continue to provide residents with the opportunity to obtain legal title to the lands they occupy. Last year, under this act, we were able to empower 7 pensioners at River Bay by transferring the ownership of their properties to them free of charge, giving them the dignity and security that comes with owning their own land. We will continue this process of empowerment by also transferring title to residents living in the terrace units through a vesting bill. This legislation will vest ownership of the properties to these persons who qualify. This bill will be debated in this Honourable House and will empower over 200 Barbadians with title to their homes. We will also engage in the modern and efficient, transparent land management system, which is essential for national development. The Barbados Land Registry has been at the forefront of this transformation. The completion of the National Digital Parcel Fabric and the launch of the Barbados Building Identifier System are revolutionizing how we manage and access land information. But we are not just building homes and transforming digitally, we're building communities. Special attention is given to those most in need, including persons living with HIV, the elderly, and those displaced by natural disasters or unsafe living conditions. Our relocation projects, emergency housing, and wellness initiative ensure that no Barbadian is left behind. Over the past year, we have made some strides. Hundreds of new homes have been completed or are under construction at sites at Coverley, Brighton, West Terrace, Concordia Gardens, and Vineyard, through both Hope and joint ventures with the NHC. Emergency and transitional housing has been provided for those affected by natural disasters and land slippage. The Barbados Land Registry has reduced backlogs, digitized records, and improved access to land information for all stakeholders. Maintenance and refurbishment projects are underway for key government buildings, including the Ministry of Transport and Works headquarters and the State House. We have continued to support vulnerable groups as well. We do acknowledge that some projects have experienced delays, particularly due to environmental issues, procurement challenges, and the need for additional staffing. In some cases, milestones originally set for last year are still being finalized. We are actively addressing those issues, accelerating backlog reduction projects, and ensuring that all outstanding commitments are met in the coming months. We look ahead to complete ongoing housing developments, accelerate the delivery of new units through Hope and NHC, finalize the relocation of households affected by land slippage and infrastructure projects, continue to modernize our land and property management systems, with the Land Registry playing a central role in digital transformation and service excellence. Expand our partnerships with the private sector and community organizations. In conclusion, the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance is committed to building a Barbados where every citizen has the opportunity to own a home, where public assets are well maintained, and where land is managed for the prosperity of all. We thank you for your support and partnership as we continue this important work. Together, Let us build a stronger, more resilient, and more inclusive Barbados. Thank you. I wish to move that head 93 stamp part.
Honourable Member for St. James, for St. Michael West, Northwest.
Blessed good morning to all. Good morning, Minister, and to your team. My concern this morning really is in relation to the tenants who reside in housing units within Deacon's Farm, Rosemont, Ferniehouse, and Golden Acre. And these are 4 separate housing areas within the constituency of St. Michael Northwest. Over the years, persons have been residing in these units for more than 20 years. And I have constituents who are still paying rent, living in these units for 27 years and 30 years. I know also that when it comes to some of these tenants who may be indebted to the corporation in relation to outstanding arrears, I want to know what are your plans in relation to these tenants living in these units for 20 years or more and still paying rent. I honestly think that the rent should cease with immediate effect once you reach the 20-year mark. And I also think that in relation to the rent owed, that a payment plan system should be put in place for those tenants so that those tenants who may be indebted to the corporation can also benefit from the 20-year program as well.
Honourable Member, thank you for that question. And yes, I'm very aware of the density of housing estates within your constituency. And as I said in my opening remarks, we are committed to transferring title to these individuals in your estates that have been living in the estates for more than 20 years. And once those individuals do not have any arrears up to 20 years, I can guarantee you that we will work with them to be able to sort out any rents after that. I consider this issue an issue of social justice. And the truth is a lot of your residents in the estates have been good paying residents. And certainly the ministry and the NAC will not burden them once they have been good paying tenants up to the 20 years. As you know, we have already begun the work of transferring title to some of your residents who are in Deacons and Ferniehouse. And I would have, at some point, mentioned this to them during a certain occasion, as you know. And I know that they do look forward for the security of title. And I, as Housing Minister, is one of the ways that I am very proud to be able to empower those Barbadians and your constituents with title to their properties. So you have that assurance from myself and my team.
So what about the assurance that those living for 20 years and still paying rent, that the rent will cease?
Those individuals that we have down to transfer and those titles are transferred, we assure you that once their rents are up to date, we will work with them on any rents that have to be due after that. But as you know, we have about 98 units in Deacons that we are currently surveying, and we will be introducing them to a second phase of vesting. So my assurance to you is that we will work with them on a case-by-case basis to be able to make sure that justice is served to them.
Okay. Well, just for the record, I have one constituent that I could speak of living in the unit for 27 years, and she's still paying rent. So I just want the assurance that, after 20 years and living for 27, that I think that she should stop paying rent. But that's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. James Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to begin, Minister, by congratulating your team, and that should not take any members of your team by surprise. I know that they have been much beleaguered by public criticism, but when one is able to point to incidents of good, as I can, then I think that the congratulations are in order. And equally, I would want to congratulate your predecessor, who himself was also much beleaguered. And obviously, you as new minister, to congratulate you on the work that you have been able to pilot thus far, and obviously to reflect a little bit on the need for you to be given an opportunity, which will really be my very first question, to elaborate a little bit on your own personal vision. But before I go there, I want to make the point that I recognize in your opening remarks the very laudable and praiseworthy mention of social justice and inclusivity. And that, for me, is a critical component of this ministry's work, because housing is, in its traditional sense, a social good. It is about offering initiatives and services that enhance community well-being and social justice. And it is in that vein that I really wanted to invite you on a couple of things. The first one is to expand a little bit on this concept of social mortgages. I think that you mentioned it, but it is useful, I believe, if you have an opportunity to elaborate on the concept. I believe I know where you're going, but I think you should have an opportunity to elaborate on it in the context of not only your vision, but more particularly, and I do not come to these places to prime the parish pump, but on this occasion, let me remind your ministry and your team that I have a constituency in which there's a location called Redmond Village where we have terrace units. And therefore, if you would be so good as to make it simple so that we can then understand in Redmond Village what the social mortgage concept is really all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And the term social mortgage is actually a program that was coined and invented by our team members. And essentially, that is rent to own. You are correct. There are too many Barbadians out there, and we know this from experience in getting mortgage certificates. A lot of people are desirous to have home ownership. We have a database of about 4,000 plus individuals, and what that affords us to do is to mine that database, showing us the needs of our customers. And in that exercise, we realize that there are a lot of Barbadians who just do not qualify. They are hardworking, they go out to work every day, but they feel left out of the process of home ownership. And that is the basis and the foundation for our social mortgage program. So essentially, as I said, it is rent to own, and every development, whether it be through our joint venture program with NHC or HOPE, we hope to allocate a pretty decent sized percentage of those developments to rent to home. And we see this as a way of also de-risking mortgages. The fact of the matter is that a lot of the financial institutions are simply not willing to take the risk. And as you said, Honourable Member, you were very correct. The onus is on the government through the Ministry of Housing and its state-owned entities to deliver social justice to these individuals who cannot acquire mortgages. So we do take this very seriously, and you have my assurance that under my leadership and with my team behind me, we will make sure that we can expand this program so more individuals can take part. I would also like to invite the General Manager, who can give you more specifics on how this program will be implemented.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good morning to Parliament. The idea behind the social mortgage initiative is
Honourable Member. Officer, please give your name and your position.
Ian Gill, General Manager, National Housing Corporation. My apology. The idea behind the social mortgage initiative is that when we do rent to own or we do rent to buy, whatever the term is used, the person doesn't actually have ownership. With the social mortgage initiative, the aim is that this is an actual mortgage that they'll be getting, paying to the National Housing Corporation, and you'll be able to use your house now in the future as an asset. So the simple person who has probably doesn't have the capacity and probably can only put out $500 to $800 per month in rent is now actually getting to own their home as a mortgage. So therefore, you're able then to use that for many instances where people come to ask the National Housing Corporation to use the units for other issues. What you do now is that will belongs to you, so you can now use it as an asset. And that is one of the major aims of the social mortgage initiative. We've found too that rent to own, as we've looked at the years gone by, is not actually working as we would want it to work at National Housing Corporation. So we had to come up with a new concept that we thought would benefit the persons and benefit the National Housing Corporation too. Because under the rent to own program, the National Housing Corporation is responsible for the maintenance of that unit or that house, wherever it is. With the social mortgage initiative now, the fact that you're actually owning your home, you'll be responsible for the maintenance and repairs of that home. So therefore, we'll have more income at National Housing Corporation to do more units and to construct more units so that we can offer a wider package to those persons who make between $1,000 to $2,500 per month.
If I'm permitted to follow up, Mr. Chairman. With your leave.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I thank you, Minister, and General Manager of National Housing Corporation for the elaboration on the idea. And I agree. The inability to qualify for mortgage certificates is a reality that is lived by many Barbadians. In my own constituency, and your team knows this well, in Lancaster, we would have had a serious challenge with the HOPE project there in terms of trying to help people build the kind of resource combinations, let me put it that way, because a single person may not be able to do it by themselves, so then they have to find a partner to go in with in order to do it. I experienced the same thing in Bullens in my constituency. And the truth of the matter is that, again, that is why I say that your team is worthy of being congratulated, because speaking only for that very narrow geographical space in Barbados, that's 190 houses which I know and have had some very direct relationship with, where I know you all have been able to work with me and work with the beneficiaries of the housing allocations in order to ensure that the capacity to meet mortgage certificate requirements have been made. Now, I wish to ask you, however, whether the social justice concept should not really go further. And it is in keeping with your term, Minister, of using the house as an asset, because we accept that renewable energy, again, in the Hope project, that is one of the concepts where you put renewable energy, solar photovoltaics on the roof and allow the house pretty much to pay its mortgage. My question is, are we not being too limited in the scope and too limited in the ambition? Why is it not also an ambition that we take that same concept into Redmond Village, for example, in a terrace unit, into Haynesville in a terrace unit, into Silver Hill and Gall Hill in terrace units? And you may ask, well, Senior Minister, how is that going to be possible? And my thinking, again, is that we have legislation in Barbados, and this is one of the things that vex me about this country, because we do things for the Medes, but not also for the Persians. We have legislation in Barbados, for example, a Condominium Act, where residents are allowed to identify common areas in the property that might be as simple as the staircase and the sewage system and car park and so on. But then a residents association is formed, and let's face the facts, the Condominium Act really relates primarily to the more well-to-do in this country. So there's a social economic concept behind this legislation. But we believe that those are the only people, or seem to believe that those are the only people in Barbados who can form themselves into residents associations and collectively treat the common areas of a physical property. And I feel that that ought not to be the case. I feel that the roofs across the terrace units in Redmond Village, for example, or in Haynesville, can be places where we have solar photovoltaics, and that the net beneficiaries are the people living inside the unit. Now, that is not a conversation that we've had in this country. And it bothers me that that is not a conversation we've had. As Minister of Energy, I want to have that conversation because I believe it is transformational and it is inclusive and it is in keeping with social justice principles. But I want to hear your views and that of your team.
Thank you, Honourable Member. It would seem that our destinies have crossed paths, both as you are the Member of Parliament for St. James Central, by which Lancaster exists, and you are now the Minister of Energy, so we certainly can work together. But you're very correct, we have had conversations in the ministry on how we can not only restart the energy program with Hope, but also use those same potential benefits with the housing estates. And I've had many conversations with EPS on this, and we've kicked around a number of ideas. We actually had a meeting with CAF, and we've discussed ways in which we can possibly look at real solutions for having the energy independence also implemented in our housing estates. As you know, the framework for battery storage is now online, and we most will be seeking an audience with yourself and your team on how we can have that carved out for the estates and Hope, so that we can deliver not only just social justice, but these individuals who live in the estates can also take part in the energy revolution. In terms of the Condominium Act, we have also had those conversations in the ministry, because the truth is, you heard the General Manager say that when we transfer property to those individuals living in the estates, we can also, not only the estates, but also with the other housing developments that we have on stream, we can lower our maintenance costs. And as such, we are looking at ways that we can bring or modify legislation such that we can use that same philosophy behind the Condominium Act, that we can address, say, issues that we have currently at Valerie, for instance, with the elevators and the general maintenance issues. So if we were to have a maintenance fund that can deal with that, and they can also get ownership of their units, that will be something that we'd be very interested in. We have a few of those as well. We also have Country Park high rises, we have London-born towers. So these are just examples of properties that we can also look at there. So, Honourable Member, you are very correct, and I also look forward to working with you that we can empower Barbadians as well to take part in the energy revolution.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And Mr. Chairman, if I may be just permitted one final question, and this turns on the obvious inferences being made by the minister to the many buildings that the many properties that the Ministry of Housing has oversight over. And the truth of the matter is that Ministry of Housing, for the listening public, is really the government's landlord. So there is a question that I must ask you as the senior minister with responsibility for the productive sector, because the productive sector is becoming a little bit imperiled when many of the...
Honourable Member, as long as it is connected with your previous question.
Indeed. I'm drawing
proceed.
that nexus, sir. I'm drawing that linkage. Bear with me, because we are talking about rental of properties, and rental of properties need not only be for accommodation purposes, but can also be for the business purposes of the government. And the concern I have in terms of the rental of the properties by government is that many of those properties are not, well, let's put it this way. Properties owned by government, first of all, and then in some cases those rented, are not necessarily being maintained in a way that allows for us not to have interruptions that are undesirable in the smooth flow of business between government, as we must have, and the private sector. It is a very serious issue when a number of government-owned buildings have occupants who are unable to come to work because the building, quote-unquote, is a sick building. We've been able, since COVID, to start a process where people are working away from home, away from work, working at home, and so on. But for obvious purposes, it makes it difficult because people still need to have meetings, they still need to interface. I've heard ministers in this new administration already lament the fact that staff are not able to meet with them in one place and under one roof. And I think I sit opposite one such minister. So it is a challenge. But I believe that we have to have a serious policy intervention. And I want to know whether you all are yet at a stage where you can tell us what the policy intervention is that will enable us to reduce the incidence of this, what is now a chronic complaint of buildings either being sick or full of mold or whatever, and staff implications and the disruption of the relationship between government's work and that of the relationship that it must have with private enterprise and the general public of Barbados.
Honourable Member, thank you for that question. And this is a vexatious issue, I would say, because in this year, this government is looking at growth. And we must have our government officials to be in productive workplaces, safe workplaces, where we can have all our teams together, that we can have as high productivity as possible. So I do agree with you. We need to be more strategic in the way we approach this issue. One of the things that the ministry is looking at doing is entering into bold arrangements so that we can construct buildings, high-rises, that we can begin to house our teams together, our government ministries together, increase the capacity that we can do so. It is a juggling act, I must tell you, and especially at the beginning of this governmental term, it has been challenging with the changing ministries to be able to keep people together so that we can have productive ministries. So we need to be more strategic in this approach, and I do agree with you. I would like to invite PS to give further comment on this issue. We've had many conversations. PS?
Thank you. Good morning. Nikki Smith, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance. Much as we discussed earlier, that we don't want the residents in houses to be paying rent forever. And at some point, we want them to become the owner, and we're actually doing the social mortgage to let them be the owners from early. What government is looking at doing now is recognizing that the buildings that we're in, the rented buildings, are approaching 25 years. Buildings start to give more issues as they age. From the get-go, when we rent properties, we pay a service charge. The service charge is really a pass-through charge for the landlord to be able to keep the building in good condition, and they're to account for it at the end of the year, etc. And they can have it raised if they have things happening that require them to spend more money on maintenance. However, we're still having issues where landlords are spending the money and still the AC systems are causing all sorts of problems for the occupants. So based on that, we're pursuing getting some new buildings put up on the bolt arrangements, still paying a service charge within that bolt arrangement, and also paying back the developer for the development that he has done. And at the end of that bolt period, the property will pass to us, but we will continue the maintenance arrangement if it has been good. That way we will be addressing the situation, and we will move out of buildings that have not been good to us, in that there are too many interruptions where people have to come out. But we will start to own our buildings and come up with a policy that is consistent across the service in terms of cleaning, maintenance, servicing of equipment, replacement of equipment, rather than trying to get 40 years out of an AC system and it has a life of 20, we would replace it when it is due for replacement, etc. So there's going to be a sinking fund in there to address those items.
I don't think the rules allow me to interrogate any further on this matter at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Indeed,
So
they don't.
I leave that there, and I thank
You
you
are
for your
correct,
indulgence.
Honourable Member. You can come back after all your other colleagues. Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning to the Minister of Housing and his team. I must begin by, and I don't do this normally when ministries are in the well of Parliament, because I don't think it's a time for the back patting. But the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance has been exceedingly good to the constituency that I represent in a number of areas. And I begin the preamble by speaking to the 6 Mains Life Improvement Project. I spoke to that already in this honorable chamber. The residents at Upper Rose Hill as well. And the significant work that the ministry has done, the ministry and its state-owned enterprise, the National Housing Corporation, with respect to improving the lives of these residents in my constituency, and also the pace of the work that has been done once certain hurdles had been crossed. And in that regard, I have to pay a credit to all of the ministers who have led that ministry up onto this point. Former member for St. Andrew, with whom I had the initial contact, member for Christchurch West, the member for St. George South. And this is an example in my mind of how government adds value to the lives of people. Now, the question I have particularly relates to the subhead tenantries 0532. I know that there's quite a lot of demand on the ministry's resources and time dealing with matters like these. Even doing the meetings, the town hall meetings, and having all the surveying done, and then when people like me ask for meetings, another of which I will ask for either this month or early next month, as in either March or early April. My question is, I see an increase in the allocation under that subhead, tenantries, from what appears to me to be 2 million to 5.5 million. And I'm wondering if it represents increases in capacity to do the work. And I ask that in the context of the ongoing work, which is Six Mains, Rose Hill, and Maynards, / Jerusalem. We had that discussion over the name of the area. But also the ones that I have to add to the good work that you are doing. So Mangrove is one of those areas, Mangrove in St. Peter. And I know that there is some challenge there because we're trying to find out who's the owner. The owner keeps changing. There's also French Village and Lonesome Hill, part of the Fort Hill Plantation on one hand and Mount Prospect on the other hand. They are part of the Panama issue. But I'm wondering if the increase in funding allows for me now to add some additional work to the ministry, to the good work that you've already been doing. Does this allow for you to continue to help the people of my constituency and the people of Barbados?
Honourable Member, thank you so much for that vote of confidence. And the Six Men's Life Improvement Project is certainly something to be very proud of. I think that when this government was selected to lead, this is one of the things that is top of mind to me, which is empowering people. And you are very correct. This money voted in will allow us to continue the good work of the surveys. We've already completed 77, but there's more work to do. I would like to invite Ms. Nicole Johnson to give you the specifics, Honourable Member, on this.
Good morning, Nicole Johnson, Chief Housing Planner, Ministry of Housing and Lands. The subheading 0532 to which you referred, that deals specifically with the subsidies that are to be paid, which is the difference between the $2.50 per square foot and the open market price under the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act. It also deals with the relocation of individuals who may be affected by land slippage or as a result of government's projects. The subheading that you would be referring to is 531, which deals with surveying of tenantry lots. So there are funds in there included to survey specific areas, but we can also include other areas as need be and as the need arises. So yes, we can survey the areas that you would have mentioned, but we also have specific areas like Six Mains earmarked to complete for this financial year.
All right, thank you very much for that. So given that 532 relates to, this is my first supplementary question, Mr. Chair. Given that 532 relates to that, primarily to the subsidy, it means then that the additional areas that I mentioned, and I mention them here publicly because I want you to put them on your radar: Mangrove in St. Peter, French Village in St. Peter, Lonesome Hill in St. Peter. It means that you have budgeted for additional situations of having to pay that subsidy. Am I correct?
If Mangrove and Fort Hill Plantation and Jerusalem, if they are part of the first schedule of the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act, they will be paying 10 cents per square foot or $1 per square meter, so a subsidy would not be part of that program.
Okay, thank you very much. The matter of dealing with tenantries speaks, and this is my second follow-up question, Mr. Chair. I don't want to get into any issues where my question is concerned. The matter of dealing with tenantries speaks to keeping communities together. And I think that is a very important matter because, in my view, some of what we are seeing in our communities is a result of some level of dysfunction in terms of people moving around and moving into different areas and not blending, not meshing, not really being community, even though you're in the same geographic space. And so, as we do with tenantries, my question, and the tenantries, the reason why I asked about Mangrove and French Village Low on some hills, because these are people who want to stay in their communities. Now, the question that I have is, when we look at a terrace unit, for example, if we take that same principle of keeping communities together, would I be able to get a commitment from the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance that when units become available in manors, for example, that persons from nearby who are on the list will get preference as opposed to bringing persons from, like, I closer to North Point and South Point. So rather than bringing people from South Point to live in manors, that we, using the same principle that we apply to the tenantries, can we get a commitment that you will give preference to persons who live, who are on the list, but who live in close proximity so that we can keep our communities together?
Honourable Member, thank you so much for that question. And you and I have had conversations on this issue of keeping communities together, and it is extremely important to do so. Now, the Honourable Member for St. James Central, we also spoke about that development at Bullins, and he would have a few individuals who were allocated in Bullins, as that is in his constituency. So we already do heed to that principle that communities should be kept together. Of course, in some instances where the mission of the ministry is to offload very dense areas, such as the Pine, where we know that a lot of the issues that we see in these types of areas as it pertains to crime, we know that the frustrations are high in these types of areas, that we actually have to offload those communities so that people can stretch their legs and exhale. And the Honourable Member for St. Michael Southeast will tell you that one of her priorities as a representative is to be able to achieve this so that she can have safer communities. So I think that this is a case-by-case basis, but Honourable Member, certainly that is a first principle, especially in your communities, where we know that in some of the country areas, people living their whole lives for generations don't want to move. And the Honourable Member for St. Joseph also would be in that category, as he's one of the few members that lives and hails from the area that he serves. So he would understand this principle as well. So where it fit, I can assure you, Honourable Member, that we will stick with the philosophy of keeping communities together.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to use a third question, but I'm just going to close by saying, I'm probably saying it for the first time with you, Honourable Member, as the Minister. I think that as a government, so I'm not asking you to make policy on the fly, but I think as a government, we have, along the same lines that I'm talking about, keeping communities together, while we explore development on greenfield sites, large areas where you can put in the services, and it is more economically viable to do that in large spaces. But I think for the sake of community, for the sake of social cohesion, that government, and through government the country, needs to get to the point where we recognize that we're going to have to forego a few economies of scale and develop some small tracts of land in communities or near communities in an attempt to maintain that cohesion. It is going to mean that the per square foot cost is going to be higher, but I think as a country, given what we are seeing in our, well, I don't want to say the criminal justice space, but maybe that's where we're seeing it, so let's just be blunt about it. Based on what we are seeing, rather than spending the money in the prison, we need to spend the money in preventing people from going to that place. So the same pressures that you spoke about in the point, which I hope that you are not going to be, you're talking about offloading, and I'm hoping that that offloading does not mean exporting, but we'll speak about that separately, and I'm not going any more detail on that. But I just saying, concluding, Mr. Chair, by saying that we may need to recognize that we have to spend a little bit more to keep communities together by developing these smaller tracts of land that are around existing communities for the benefit of those who want to stay close and not leave. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member, I do agree with you wholeheartedly. And the thing about using these small lots in existing communities and areas is actually cheaper because we already have established infrastructure. And at the ministry, we've actually been surveying vacant lots in this country where we can put down a house here, a house there, in communities such as yours. As such, I would like to invite Mr. Raymond Lord, Acting Deputy General Manager, to speak on this issue, as this is one of his favorite topics.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and colleagues and parliamentarians. One of the things we are trying to do with, good morning, my name is Raymond Lord. I am the Acting Deputy General Manager of National Housing Corporation, but substantively the Chief Planning Officer. One of the things we're looking at along the larger sites is to look at the derelict houses out of the EPD notices to see where we can access those housing units, those derelict houses. We are running a project now to identify a minimum of 20 and to perfect an instrument that will allow us to access those lands. Those are private lands. What we have also done in St. Peter recently, with the 6 Men's Life Improvement Project, is to identify a vacant area within that section, and we've done a subdivision. We should have landed it at town planning by now. I have to check with my senior planning officer, where we are looking to have about, I think it's about 8 to 10 lots in that area to allow us to do some shifting of those houses as well. So where we can go into smaller housing areas and extract some housing, some lots, we will do that. Those are called more brownfield type sites, and where we can do the other thing, which is larger scales, we'll also do that. But we are hoping through the Permanent Secretary, as we're working, to be able to pull forward a new derelict housing revision project, working with both the NHC and the RUDC to open up lands that already have services attending to them, which will give government a large ease in terms of its expenditure. But we have to perfect the legal instrument by which we do it. So that is why we are running a pilot on it right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Philip West. Honourable Member for St. Philip West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I start this morning with gratitude to the National Housing Corporation for some work that they have started within the constituency of St. Philip West. And I'm happy to hear the minister speak of quality, safe, and sustainable housing. And in that connection, Mr. Chairman, my question relates to the housing area in Farm Gardens in St. Philip. where the National Housing Corporation has already started its good work with replacing the asbestos roofs on a number of houses that were built by NHC. My question is, sir, having started with some houses in this financial year, only 2 were completed, but there are a number of other houses who still carry asbestos roofs. And in the interest of maintaining the quality and the safety of those housing, when can the people of St. Philip West expect that the rest of those asbestos roofs will be replaced?
Honourable Member, thank you for your question. I would like to invite the General Manager of the NHC to address it.
Thank you very much, Minister. As you have stated, we've completed 2, and those 2 were of an urgent content because we received letters from the medical fraternity in respect of those homes and the effect that they were having on families. Money has been approved for the next financial year for the completion. I think there are 10 more to be done.
Yes.
And we've made that request, and that request has been accepted. So I would say within the first quarter of the year, we should be able to do some completion of some others for you, and that should be continuous until the 10 of them are completed.
Mr. Chairman, may I continue? My second related question.
Yes, you may, as long as it is related.
Yes, in the very same community, which we identified, there are also some outstanding conveyances. In other words, for many years in that very same community, persons were told that they would have access to the housing. That was, many of them have letters that suggest that. However, there has been no paperwork that allows them to know that that house is now theirs. My question, therefore, is, again, in the same Farm Gardens community, when can we expect that that paperwork will be completed? And if there are any impediments that we need to be aware of that we need to overcome in order to advance that effort?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I would like to invite the Chief Legal Officer at the NHC, Ms. Henrietta Board-Ford, to address your issue.
Good morning, Henrietta Bourne-Ford, Chief Legal Officer, National Housing Corporation. In relation to Leadville, there's the location in question?
Leadville has been addressed, particularly as it relates to Jade Circle. It is Farm Gardens that we're talking about.
Farm Gardens. At Farm Gardens, we have, under the 20-year program, there are a couple of units, and in some instances, these are single houses. There are 7 units, and they are to be transferred.
2 have already been transferred.
Today, 2 have been conveyed, and there are issues in relation to having some additional surveying done within because some are duplexes, so they will need to be subdivided. So that is what is outstanding. But we have a scheduled list of those outstanding estates that in this financial year, we will be addressing. We recognize there's a need to have the title conveyed to a number of persons, some that have been outstanding for a while. And our team has met, and a strategy has been devised in order to transfer as many of these units as possible. It involves, in some instances, the surveying, and in some instances, having the engineering certificates obtained. So that is on our agenda, and it will be addressed.
Thank you very much. That's very encouraging. And finally, I heard the minister early, Mr. Chairman, mention that there may be a shift from national housing, dealing more with construction and dealing more with maintenance again with regards to these kinds of housing. And my question is, there were a number of...
Honourable member, is this a related question to your first?
Yes, it is, because it relates specifically to the affordable housing and how we are being able to maintain and deal with it.
You may proceed. Let me caution honourable members that I am in the chair and I will be the judge of whether the questions are related or not.
Okay, thank you. And Minister and team, National Housing Corporation had started the construction and repairs on a number of buildings after Elsa and others in this community and others. Now, with there being a shift from my understanding, please correct me if I've misunderstood, with the shift where National Housing is no longer doing the construction part of things, but would more be doing the maintenance of things. My question is, how are we ensuring that the houses started by National Housing on a construction level, that they do not now fall through the cracks and then not be transferred? To whom are they going to be transferred for those that are incomplete? And how will we ensure that they are addressed in an efficient manner?
Thank you, Honourable Member. And yes, you are correct that the National Housing Corporation will concentrate more on the maintenance and will engage more in joint ventures to be able to speed up the housing building process and also to guarantee better quality homes for Barbadians. I will invite the General Manager to speak on the issues on projects that we have started.
Thank you, Minister. As we are aware, that I'm confident that the MP is speaking about the Hurricane Elsa project, and the Hurricane Elsa project is ongoing with a project section, and until that project is completed, that section will remain, that team will remain to make sure that the houses are completed. We are hoping very soon through a supplementary to be able to start those houses once again across this country and to complete them very quickly.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, honourable member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And again, Minister and your team, good morning. You know, it's interesting when you come in a little bit down the batting order, because I had some questions that were already asked by some previous members, and I thought that is good. There were some supplementaries I would have wanted to have asked, but I will leave it there. But I wanted to get specifically and zero in on the electrical upgrade program, because I looked through the estimates, and yes, the electrical upgrade program has been a benefit, but I want specifically, unlike my colleague from St. James Central, I am going to press the parish pump, because Pleasant Hall started some time ago, and I want to thank the people at National Housing Corporation, but there's still a couple blocks that have not been completed. And I would like to ask that we please zero in on these, because you cannot half complete or 80% complete the job. And we really need to zero in and get the electrical upgrade in that particular area sorted. I would like to ask you, Minister, when do you think that Pleasant Hall will be completing the electrical upgrade program?
Thank you for your question. I would like to invite the GM to address it.
Thank you very much. In respect of Pleasant Hall, we have a situation where the units, most of them are completed as I'm seeing here, but there's an issue with the extension, and having had discussions with you previously, what we did is we went to the board in December, and we asked the board to reach a situation where we, National Housing Corporation, now does the extensions, And we are looking at two ways of making sure that we get back the funds from that, because the extensions would have been put on, they're legal, and they would have been put on by the person or that unit. But what it is doing, those people who are on the right side are being affected because Barbados Light and Power Company has stated that they will not put on one or two on any terrace units. It must be the complete block when they're coming to put on the meters. Therefore, we've reached a situation where we can't continue to disadvantage others. So the board has made a determination that we will do those extensions. In respect of the particular one, there's one in particular at Pleasant Hall where the person has put on extensions, but it seems that she's now renting those extensions. So that's a special case that we now have to deal with. And so that is with the legal section at this time. But as I said, across the country, Dickens Farm and other places, there are extensions, but the board has made a determination we're going to do those extensions so we can make the ill right. Therefore, we're going to do that, but then as I said, the payment will either depend. One of the ways that the board said that payment could be determined is the fact that when the job is completed, that for those persons who their properties have not been transferred to them as yet, that they cannot gain their properties until they've paid off what that sum will be. Also, another idea that came up is that we can prepare paper, go to Cabinet, and we can ask Cabinet to get these funds from the consolidated fund, and when that is done, for those persons who are not under the 20-year program, that when they pay us back, that we do pay back the consolidated fund or the housing credit fund, whichever it may be. But these are the options. A board paper is being prepared. We've been approved to do the extensions, but we now have to determine how those funds will be returned to us, or whether the government will grant us those funds so we can complete the job even quicker.
Thank you very much. I'll ask the follow-up question then, because clearly, as you quite rightly said, the many cannot be disadvantaged because of the actions of the few. And I gladly support that and look forward to seeing that matter is concluded. However, you did bring up the 20-year program. And I know that we had a bill laid here in this honorable chamber about, I believe it was 240 people to get the 20-year program, but there are many others. And I would ask you, Minister, now that we've had that time that has elapsed since that first bill, when will the second bill be coming? And then how many you think you'll be able to get? Because there are obviously other people who could benefit from that conveyance under that 20-year program.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Yes, that first bill is to be laid, and this is one of the hallmarks of my short time in the ministry, to be able to bring a vesting bill to this honourable chamber so that we can empower individuals, not just in a piece way, but in a large batch, because we all know that it was like watching paint dry or grass grow. It was taking way too long. And this government has a tremendous mandate in empowering people, just not by building, but by manipulating innovative legislative mechanisms like the vesting bill, and also still manipulating the age-old, aging like a fine wine, tenantries freehold purchase act to be able to empower Barbadians. So yes, Honourable Member, you're correct. We have about 200 odd to start with. And I know that the Prime Minister has my feet to the fire, and we must deliver no less than that in the next batch. And that is my creed. That is my promise to you, that we will not allow shortages in, say, in the engineering certificates or in the surveying, to delay this process, the process of empowering Barbadians. But Honourable Member, to give you more specifics on this, I would like to again invite the Chief Legal Officer to give you more specifics on where we are.
Thank you, Minister. As stated by Minister Gibbs, indeed, the Prime Minister is directing and and the focus and thrust is to get as many of these units conveyed to persons who have been waiting on the units for an inordinately long period of time. And we've adopted a number of approaches in order to do so. Currently, as Minister indicated, there's the bill that is laid before Parliament to have persons enfranchised. But in addition to that, we are currently preparing, well, we've started the process of preparing a second batch that will come to Parliament. This process involved the wardens going into the field, and that has been ongoing to check it to see the status of the houses, if tenants are there or not. We also have another approach in those instances where we don't have the engineering certificates. It may be a case where we can get the necessary permission from planning and development to get the certificates of compliance, so that those units in addition could be added to the list for transfer to the qualified tenants. We're looking at all the various estates that we think would be low-hanging fruit. And we have a target of at least 500 units, but if we can have more added to that, so we could ultimately have all the units transferred to those persons who are eligible to have their units conveyed to them.
Thank you, Minister. And that, I guess, brings me to my final question as it relates to this same matter, because it goes to criteria. And I heard very clearly the member for St. Michael Northwest talk about when people, after they reach 20 years, well, they should continue to pay rent. And I know that certainly in my area, there were people that once they got to 20 years, they stopped paying the rent because they thought that they would fall under that policy. So what happens in those situations? Exactly what criteria are you following to know which units would qualify? Is it that if people owe rent that they still would not qualify? Do those rents after 20 years have to be liquidated? What are the criteria that people will be able to get onto the program exactly?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I would like to invite the GM to further address your question.
What happens there, the criteria falls under, the first criteria is that you, under the 20-year program, is that you must be a first-time homeowner. And what happens then is that the legal section would go through the records of the registrar of titles to make sure that you indeed only don't own a property in this country. Once that is done, that is really the basis of determining, once you've lived in that unit for 20 years or more, that you should become the owner of that property. In respect of the paying of rent, there are persons, and I think there are over 2,000 persons who will receive letters from the National Housing Corporation stating that they are part of the 20-year program. And I think that once you receive that letter, you stop paying rent. So the persons in your community would have stopped paying rent when they would have received a letter saying that they're now fully up on the 20-year program. The program was put on hold in 2018. And there are some persons who would now be coming into the 20-year program, and they would have been paying rent through the 2020, 21, 22, 23, and they've now made the 20 years and so on, and they believe that they should stop. But they have not received letters from the National Housing Corporation. So that is why, to be on the safe side, many continue to pay that rent. The issue has been mentioned by the representative for St. Michael Northwest, and it is an issue that we will deal with very urgently, because a decision has to be made, a firm decision has to be made once you've made that 20 years.
I'm not sure you quite answered, but I will yield back at this time and we'll discuss further with your minutes.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think the Honourable Minister knows exactly what my first question will be. One of the wonderful things about this format for the estimates is that...
Before you proceed, Honourable Member, for those persons who would have made their contribution already, Honourable Members, please, when you do so, take your marker down. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm reclaiming my 12 seconds.
You can proceed.
One of the wonderful things about this format is that it allows us to bring directly questions from constituents whom we have canvassed for this very purpose to this honorable place. And that's one of the reasons that I think that this innovation has been one of the best of this government's term. I got many calls this morning from residents of Valerie, knowing that the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance would appear in the well today, and I am grateful for engaged constituents. The National Housing Corporation at subprogram 533 in your estimates, Minister, is meant to execute $23.5 million as part in this vote. The residents of Valerie continue to be concerned about the maintenance of the units in which they live, the buildings overall, and the grounds of the property. We know that the original construction was problematic. That is something that we have identified from some of the current problems that we have. However, here we are. Government is a continuum, and we have to be able to respond. The elevator and its maintenance continues to be an issue. The fact that safety and security are issues for residents because of the entry system that is used for the buildings, and general maintenance for individual units has also continues to come up. Some months ago, the general manager, the then minister, and other officials came to have a town hall meeting with residents. I have not received, as MP, a report on any follow-up that came from that, a specific report on how those issues are to be addressed. And I am interested to hear specifically, with respect to Valerie, what is the intended approach to be able to address some of these issues. And please feel free in the response to include any agreements, covenants with residents themselves that you think would be useful in the way forward. I say that because I am well aware of the rights and responsibilities balance in this equation. And I know that the NHC has made some efforts with respect to the maintenance of the elevator, with respect to the parts that took a long time but finally came and were installed, and other issues dealing, for example, with the door to the buildings that needed to be reinstalled. So I am aware that these things also require an investment and a commitment from residents, but I would like to hear specifically, and with timelines if you can, what are the plans to make sure that people are able to live safely and well in the units at Valerie?
Thank you, Honourable Member. And we have had many conversations on Valerie, and I know you're very passionate about making sure that the residents there, your constituents, can have safe surroundings. And there have been many issues that some have been addressed and some are still outstanding. And you have my commitment that we will continue to work with you through the National Housing Corporation to aspire to, not only aspire, but we will execute strategies and programs to be able to solve these issues for your constituents. But specifically, I would like to invite the GM and then Mr. William Clark to dive a bit more in on what we have planned to address these issues.
Thank you, Minister. In respect of the Valerie high rises, let's deal with the elevator first. And yes, the elevator has been repaired. And only yesterday, based on what was stated to me, we would began to install cameras within those elevators. It is critical that we do such because the elevators are suffering from vandalism continuously. And with that in mind, we need now to make sure we can secure the lives of persons who come through that door and go into those elevators. And we are working, we were told that within 2 weeks, those cameras should be installed. So we should we are hoping that we can cut the amount of vandalism and the amount of damage done to those elevators. The door, we've ordered a door concept from one of the suppliers here in Barbados. They're working on it. We're hoping that it can be completed because whatever we put at Valerie at some point, however we change it, we find out that it gets damaged. We've gone to, they're one of 2 suppliers and we've chosen one. We've gone to them and asked them to come and give us a concept that would give a more secure building and make the occupants even feel more secure, and that has been done. We're hoping that that can be completed pretty soon. So we are looking towards that. In respect of the maintenance of the units and so on, that continues. We are having some challenges too with some of the tenants in the way that they are keeping the units. Even when we repair the units, the units return to a state of disrepair pretty quickly. So we are having, Mr. Clark and his team are having conversations with those persons to see how best we can handle and deal with that situation. With that in mind, I turn over to the Chief Estates Officer, William Clark.
Thank you very much, Jim, and good morning, everyone. William Clark, Chief Estates Officer, National Housing Corporation. Just to say to Minister, I share your concerns with the work that's being done at Valerie, and I'm glad the General Manager went into detail to explain some of the challenges that we are experiencing at the Valerie High Rise. With respect to the repairs, however, we've carried out a number of replacements on the internal units. For example, we are experiencing challenges with the roof, as you mentioned earlier, and quite rightly. We have had in the past some difficulty with the roof, and now in these estimates, we have been requesting funds so that we can escalate that work to repair the roofs at Valerie. This is going to help us to reduce some of the challenges that we've been facing with leaks that really cause a lot of the deterioration of the woodwork in there. But what I can say, we're happy to report that from the last meeting we had with respect to the tenants, we've replaced some 13 corporate units throughout Valerie. And in many cases, we've replaced in the bathroom areas some 13 ceiling structures. The repairs continue at a slow rate, but hopefully now with these and these new estimates, we will be able to escalate those repair work so that those can be completed at a faster and much sooner rate. With respect to the security with the doors that the GM spoke about, we have had over the last year, those doors have been replaced 3 times. And we, as the GM mentioned, we are currently looking now at a more solid type of roof structure that would be more secured and that would be resistant to vandalism. But that's a challenge that we're facing at Valerie. It is true that we're doing the best we can with respect to what we have, but the tenants have to work with us. And particularly young children, those are the ones who are really carrying out a lot of the damage to the structure at Valerie.
Thank you, Minister, and to your team for those thorough responses. I didn't get on this occasion to make reference to these sewage and sanitation issues. But in my first follow-up question, having reference to what we just heard about the fact that the doors at Valerie had to be replaced 3 times in order to be more tamper resistant, and you've had to try to find other kinds of innovations for dealing with this kind of maintenance and repairs. I wanted to ask a general question about new approaches to housing construction, both for these kinds of housing units, but also to account for the demand and the speed and the scale that you're being asked to meet now, Minister. It clearly can't be the old methods for all kinds of reasons. And I trust, and I know that the ministry has been looking at innovative housing and some new ways of building homes more quickly. I know that there's a recent one that I'm told can get a house up in 6 weeks. And so I'm interested to hear from you about some new approaches to construction that will help to address longevity and scale.
Thank you, Honourable Member, and most certainly that is squarely our mandate to find more innovative ways to construct resilient and affordable homes. And I would like to insert another word in there, which is dignified. And the dignity of living in a home is such that the materials that you have, and you're quite correct, that the materials can stand the test of time. So given that hope is the engine of our building now, and they have formed new partnerships with contractors and developers who bring innovative ways in building homes. I would like to invite the CEO of Hope to give some examples of how they've been able to build better, more resilient homes faster, so that we can supercharge our housing strategy. So I invite the CEO of Hope to comment.
Yeah, Mark Williamson, CEO of Hope. Yeah, currently we have a project called Concordia, where we're building prefabricated timber homes at speed, and we have quite a strict quality control process on that form of construction. Up in St. Lucie, we have a project under construction.
Officer, sir, you bring the mic, speak closer to the mic, thank you.
Better? So in St. Lucie, we have a project under construction where we're building 86 houses with lightweight gauge steel construction, which is a fairly fast process. Again, that's been constructed under strict quality control procedures.
Sorry, I was giving the minister a chance to come back, but we'll leave it there. I have a final follow-up. The need for innovative approaches to construction and maintenance is a function of demand. When I sit in my constituency office every week and hear from people about their housing needs, invariably they will say I have an application in NHC since, and some of it dates back to my birthday. This is not news to you, Minister, and this is a national challenge. This is not one that you may shoulder primarily, but you do not shoulder alone, because this relates to all kinds of issues at the national level. But I remain concerned about the management of applications and response, and being able to give applicants a real answer that may include things like offering other kinds of solutions that may not be strictly within the purview of the Ministry of Housing or NHC. What I would like to see improved is clients' sense of assurance, either a yes, a no, this is in 6 years, this is in 10 years, this is something that is not within our scope, something. What is your approach to being able to manage the thousands of applications and new requests that the ministry is receiving for housing?
Honourable member, thank you for that question. And you're quite correct. We must do better when it comes to communication with the list of clients that exist in our database. What we are currently doing, Honourable member, is that we are looking at our database of clients more as a knowledge-based database where we can mine information so that we can provide solutions, housing solutions, which are better suited to our customer base. And the truth is that these individuals that have been waiting, as you said, since you were born, and the truth is that I get letters all the time. I meet people everywhere, and they tell me that they've been waiting for 20 years, 25 years. Some of them have dropped out of the list, and the truth is that those individuals in this database that have been waiting for all these years, they must be given priority to any developments that we have. And the Prime Minister and the Cabinet have set the policy for, along with the Ministry of Housing, that this is how we have to approach this list, that these individuals must be given priority to any new developments that we have going forward. And the truth is yes, we have to pay better attention to their needs and be more communicative with these individuals on how to go about acquiring a mortgage. And in those situations where you may fall short, then what other solutions do we have for you, our customer, our client? And the truth is, as I said earlier, we are crafting different solutions for them, such as in the social mortgage program, rent to own. But we need to pay attention to their needs. And the truth is that going forward, under my guidance and leadership, we will be using more of a client-based methodology and approach in the way in which we allocate housing. So we have already began to approach this situation differently. To expand on this, I would like to invite the GM to give you a little bit more insight, and those people who have been waiting for such a long time, on the changes that we have made so that we can better meet their needs. GM?
Thank you very much, Minister. We've implemented a contact center. The contact center is still at an early stage, but the idea here is that applicants, when they call or when they walk into the National Housing Corporation, that they can now go to a section where they can sit and have their applications and so on filled out for them. At the said time, one of the challenges that we are facing at National Housing is the fact that with the depletion of the units that we have because of the 20-year program and the tenantries program and so on that is giving these units to persons. We now don't have the quantum of units that we had previously. We know that there's a commitment to build 10,000 houses over the next 5 years, and quite a few of them will fall under the social mortgage initiative, so that we can only hope that there will be an increase in the amount of units and houses, even as we go now to set to lets and we go to we stay with high-rise buildings, that we'll be able to offer more units to those persons who are now making applications to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. My 10th card will remain up because I'm asking you to come back to me once this first round is finished, please.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg leave to sit again.
The question is that I do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and beg for leave to sit again. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported progress and requests leave to sit again. Honorable Leader Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 12:20.
The question is that this honorable chairman be suspended until 12:20 p.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honorable chairman stands suspended until 12:20 p.m.